brief personal eulogy to J H Mensah. First accused, Joseph Henry Mensah. These words provided the basis for a cherished relationship that was to last until his death. I first heard of him during my undergraduate days at Legon Hall at the University of Ghana. He had been one of the first members of the hall, the Premier Hall. Indeed, the first president of the Junior Common Room. He was spoken of as the brilliant young economist who, according to legend, wrote the famous 7-year development plan of Kwame Nkrumah's CPP government of the First Republic. In the political culture of the period, his reward was a great deal of negative publicity, imperialist stooge, fifth columnist, etc., which eventually led him to leave the country to work for the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I next heard of him when he became the Minister for Finance in Dr. Buzia's short-lived Progress Party government of the Second Republic. Legend has it, again, that he opposed the fateful decision to devalue the currency. Typically of him, I never heard him make that claim, but he did on one occasion intimate that those who advised Prime Minister Buzia on the policy ended up, whilst he was in detention, as economic advisors to Colonel Kutu Achampong, the military leader who used the devaluation to organize the coup that overthrew the Second Republic. I met him briefly for the first time during that era, when I came down from Paris, where I was working as a young lawyer, to visit my parents when my father was President of the Republic. I came to know him well after I finally returned home from Paris in 1975, and he has spent some 18 months as a detainee of Achampong's National Redemption Council government. I used to visit him at the offices of the consultancy firm he set up in Tudu, Accra, and experienced thereafter an abiding affection for him. His wit and clarity of expression, his sheer joie de vivre, coupled with his natural gravitas, were infectious, as were his spirit and sense of confidence about the future. Suddenly, out of the blue, came news of his arrest for what turned out to be an innocuous piece of pamphleteering involving his longtime associate, I.C. Quay, and Dr. Buzia's private secretary, Kwame Karikari. They were arraigned before the Accra Circuit Court, presided over by His Honor Maximus Atafin, on a charge of sedition against the military government. I was one of the lawyers for the defense, both of the trial court and on appeal, where he was eventually acquitted and freed. This was the case in which he was characterized as the first accused, which I adopted as my term of endearment for him. On his release, I saw him often, and he became unabashedly my mentor. I enjoyed his company enormously. The brilliant intellect, the impish sense of humor, the urbane, civilized personality, and above all, the deep love of the Ghanaian people and their history, and the dogged faith in their capacity to build a progressive civilization, the equal of any on the face of the planet. His attachment to democratic values was profound, and he helped me confirm my conviction that the rapid development of our nation was possible with democratic institutions. He subscribed fully to the concept of development in freedom, the mantra of the Dankwa Domo Buzia political tradition, whose founders he revered. The highlights of his political career were many. But there can be little doubt that one of the most edifying was his leadership of the minority in the Second Parliament of the Fourth Republic, the first time a minority had surfaced in the Parliament of the Fourth Republic. Adept, combative, eloquent, resilient, and imbued with an unshakable love of the parliamentary institution, he led the minority with great verve and panache and set a standard of engagement as a minority leader that would be difficult to replicate. It was a pleasure and privilege to have been part of the small band of 61 MPP members of Parliament who acknowledged him as our undisputed leader. Stirring echoes of Henry V of Shakespeare at Agincourt. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. That was the minority between 1997 and 2001. His statement to us at the beginning of the Second Parliament, that, and I quote, "Our numbers mean that we cannot win a vote in the House, but we can win the debate outside in the country," unquote, was prophetic. The performance of the minority under his leadership was such that the Ghanaian people came to have confidence that a change from the long period of PNDC-NDC rule would not necessarily be a leap in the dark. That undoubtedly facilitated the MPP victory of 2000 under J H Mensah. His role as senior minister in the government of his brother-in-law, His Excellency John Agyekum Kufuor, second president of the Fourth Republic, was invaluable. Experienced, far-sighted, visionary, he brought his great intellect to the consideration of the difficult matters that the Kufuor government had to address. Invariably, he would shed light on complicated issues and pave the way for intelligent solutions. The president and members of his cabinet benefited visibly from his interventions. The most felicitous of pens, it was a joy to read his communications, for he had a wonderful ability to express complex ideas in the most simple way. Arguably, only that outstanding Chief Justice, Fred Kwesi Apalu, had that same faculty amongst the great officials of modern Ghana. Today, I can recall, as if it was yesterday, his thoughtful observation that the country needed to find a way to employ the infrastructure of our schools, which lies dormant for nearly half of the year. JH instinctively pointed over a decade ago to the double-track system that the nation is about to experience. That was the measure of the man, insightful and perceptive. One of the greatest servants of the Ghanaian people has gone to meet his maker. Modest in his living, disdainful of material things, his passion was for the public weal, the public good, the public interest, res publica, public matters. Four of our historic leaders, Kwame Nkrumah, Kofi Abrefa-Busia, Jerry John Rawlings, John Agyekum Kufuor, were touched in diverse ways by his genius. It is to my eternal regret that old age, he was 88 at my investiture, which he nevertheless insisted on attending, and illness prevented him from being able to do the same for me, his self-acclaimed protege, whom he did so much to assist to reach the top of the greasy pole. Civil servant, international public official, member of parliament, minister for finance, senior minister, J H Mensah goes to join his ancestors with the plaudits of a grateful nation filling the air. I'm wholly humbled by the opportunity given to me, by the grace of God and the generosity of the Ghanaian people, to decree a state funeral for him as President of the Republic. My wife, Rebecca, had a particularly soft spot for him. His elegant, courtly manners won her over completely. A special rare bottle of red wine always popped up whenever he came to visit. She joins me in expressing our sincere, heartfelt condolences to his children, PK, Amwawia, Nanaya Yabua, Akwasiama Nkwetia, Nanaya Esiedua, and Ekuya Ofuriwa, his nephews, Osaya, Akwasi Dubofo and their sisters and other cousins, his brother and sisters, Peter, Cecilia, Theresa, Esther, Mary, and his entire family for their great loss. Socrates, according to Plato's Apology, said in his defense of his trial by the Athenian government nearly 2,500 years ago, that, and I quote, "No evil can happen to a good man, either in this life or in death." Joseph Henry Mensah was a good man. J H, first accused, rest and abide in the bosom of the Almighty until we will all meet again on the last day of the resurrection. God bless, most marvelous of men, and thank you for everything.